Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're continuing on our pandemic projects, and in this series it seems to be reels in a bag. So this one is going to be a Penn 65, I believe. These were all sent in. There was about 5 or 6 of them. You saw them in the preview. And we're going to try and put this one back together as we have the others. Hopefully we'll have as much luck. I'm kind of starting a collection of these little vials. They seem to be where the folks that took the reels apart put all the pieces. And we've had varying levels of success. We've been missing a few screws and drag washers and the like, but otherwise it's been pretty good. So if you ever find yourself in this situation where you bought a reel that's in pieces and parts, best thing to do is go get a schematic. Now this one happens to be the schematic for the 85, but the parts almost match up identically with the Long Beach series, with the exception of a couple of chrome rings. So you can get these schematics at what used to be penparts.com. It is now mysticparts.com. But if you want to play along, what you would like to do is you'd like to grab the bag, get all the pieces and parts, check them off as you go through the assortment and find out what's missing before you go to reinstall and try and make the reel whole. In my case, I kind of done enough of these that I sort of know what's missing when I give a view to them. So let's get started here, and let's see how whole we are. So we have a drive side gear plate, the 2 trim rings, and I think I mentioned this. This reel was pretty much sent out to get re-chromed, and unfortunately never got completed due to unfortunate circumstances, and the owner kind of sent the reel back to me, said, could you re-chrome? Well, I don't re-chrome, but could you put it back together? And I said I'd be happy to do that for him. So it's one of our viewers, and that's the nature of these projects. So we have the chrome rings for both sides, and I have to say, from the other piece of the project that I've done, the fellow's been pretty good about keeping the pieces and parts together. We were missing a dog spring on the one. This is your spool, and I guess I could put those hard pieces into a parts tray here, just so that I don't knock them around on my bench. Here's your bridge. Bridge seems to be nice and clean. I think they probably put these through a parts washer or something. They're nice and clean. And your reel seat. And your star adjuster. So most of the exterior parts are together. So let's find out if we got the interiors together. And before we even start that, a couple of things. I wear a protective glove on my hand to keep the oils and lubricants off of them. Never quite sure what these things are made of, so if you don't know, don't take any chances. Try and keep as much of the chemicals off of you as you can. The other side is, you saw one parts tray. I'm going to use another parts tray here for the smaller pieces of parts. And again, if you had just purchased this at a flea market, or your buddy gave it to you, or something that said you can have the reel that's in pieces, good luck putting it back together again, then use a parts tray, use your schematic diagram, and that'll tell you how complete the reel is. I'm going to use a pin here to push the other pin through. Some folks have asked about this. This is not a tool that you can purchase. This is kind of a Franken tool. It was part of a cheap set of one-size-fits-all kind of a thing, where you had interchangeable blades for screwdrivers, and this was the awl. And right now I'm just trying to poke that pin through, and it's always kind of a balancing act here, so if this is off camera, I apologize, but that's what you want to do. You want to get a pin or a small nail or something to be able to poke that pin through. Usually you can wiggle it out after you get it a certain way, if you can. If you can't do that, just grab a pliers, but don't be aggressive with the pliers, just enough that you can grab it, kind of continue your wiggle, and at a certain point you'll clear the ridge, like we just did. You'll clear the ridge, and that'll enable you to get to the bridge post, and you want to do a cleaning on that bridge post. I'm going to use some steel wool for that. Somebody just said, I never see you clean the shavings off. Well, I do. Most of the time this doesn't shed for some reason, but if it does shed, Don't be afraid to take the extra step to wipe it down. All right, we cleaned the grease off the post, as I mentioned. I think this probably wound up in a parts cleaner or something. These parts are very clean. I'm just going to put a little bit of WD-40 inside. There usually is something like that, since this piece was not taken off the post when it was cleaned. So it doesn't hurt to take the extra step to clean that up. Okay, we're going to go back on with this then. I'm going to tap that back down with a dead blow hammer. And you want to make sure that this pin clears the ridge here, otherwise you won't get the main gear on. Right now it's not quite clear. I'm just going to use the corner of that pliers just to push it down a little bit more, if I can. There we go, now we're in. Okay. Alright, let's see what surprises await inside this. The last time we opened up one of these, it said that it was a 160, but it also had 285 parts in it. Actually, they're still sitting in a tray over here. And I couldn't find the side plates or anything for the 285, so I'm not quite sure on that one. We'll hear more on that in a little bit, I'm sure. Okay, let's just take the precaution of just stuffing them all into the tray, and we can take a look and see what we can see here. I'm doing kind of a quick inventory here. I'm thinking I'm seeing most of the stuff I need to see, with the exception of the drag washers, although there may be one drag washer in here. Yeah, we have an old leather drag washer in here. We'll want to get that one out. An old leather one. It's brittle. You can just see how it snaps. Leather washers are fine to keep and to use, so long as they don't break like that. They need to be flexible. Alright, so now we have the main. I went ahead already and pulled the replacement drag washers, assuming that this was like all the others, in that we weren't going to have them in the pail. But what I didn't pull was the hard washer. So the hard washer is actually 4-60 from a parts, for those of you who are following along at home. And that goes under the main washer, and I wanted to make sure we could get those, so here we go. Got the hard washer. Those are available through MrParts.com should you need them, as are the drag washers. And I guess after these put them together projects, I'm going to have to go back and reorder those as well. So we lubed the bridge sleeve. We're going to put the hard washer on. We're going to put the main gear on after we inspect the teeth. They all seem to be uniform, no chips, cracks, or otherwise. I'm going to see if I can't find my lubricating brush. A little bit of Penn Universal or Penn Precision Real Grease onto the main gear. I'm going to set the main gear on the sleeve. Then we're going to go to our replacement washers. These are HT100s. They didn't come with the HT100s. They came with leather, but over time you want to replace and upgrade, and now you can't even buy the leather. You only have to use that. All right, I'm going to use Cal's Universal Dry Grease here. I'm going to put a little bit of that on. Many of you have seen me do this before. We're going to rub it in with our gloved hand, and we're going to seat that one. There's 3 metal washers. Okay, these are all clean. If they weren't clean, you could go ahead and use some steel wool or something to clean them off. There's 2 of them that have a kind of a rectangular oblong, and there's one with a circle. The one with the circle has ears on it on each side, kind of looks like a face, so it's called an eared washer. It's called a keyed washer. There's 2 keyed. They go in between the eared washers, so the first one on then is a keyed washer. We'll go ahead and do that again with the new washer here. We're going to put some Cal's grease on it. This one always goes in the middle, and those ears sit in a groove in the main gear. You must get that ear in. I just had a question come up on my comment section of one of my videos saying I'm tightening it all the way down, but I'm not getting any response on the washers. Well, if those keys, or those ears rather, are not in that slot, if they're riding up here, you won't get the drag pressure you need, and the reel will feel awkward in doing that. So how does it come loose? It comes loose when you're kind of setting the anti-reverse dog and you come in this way. Sometimes those slip out, so just be careful as you're going to reset. All right, last of the washers there, and then we have a cap washer which goes on top. So far we're in good stead with almost everything here, except I'm not seeing the little anti-reverse dog spring. I'm seeing the anti-reverse dog, and we'll probably have to go out and get one of those. Okay, so the next step then is let's take care of the side plate here. The side plate has the eccentric out. We can take a little bit of grease to the eccentric. Kind of goes right on the side here. That's going to ride in the side plate. And we have the anti-reverse, or I'm sorry, the eccentric spring. The eccentric spring is going to go into the post corner here. And these are always a little bit of a balancing act to hold the spring in when you're going to set the piece. But you have to overset like this, and then you come around the corner here and you try and grab with your free spool lever, you try and grab this, and then you're going to want to rotate until you find a balancing point. Once you find the balancing point, I'm kind of holding it with my finger back here, you can reverse the free spool lever, and then we can put that little free spool lever screw on. Easier said than done sometimes. Again, it's kind of a balancing act here. You got a lot going on. You're trying to hold your assembly with your one hand. You're trying to hold the free spool lever in place, and you're trying to tighten the screw all at once. It sounds like you need an additional hand there. But I think we've got that now. We do. That's just tightened it, and now you'll notice that we have the eccentric working properly. Put a little bit of grease on that. Flip that to the out position for the assembly. Alright, next step we're looking for the bearing. Again, I'm going to put a little bit of grease into that. You could put oil in there. The grease tends to last a little bit longer. And we're just going to tighten that down. Do as much by hand as you can. If it gets too much, grab a wrench. This is the one part where the pen wrench actually is a tool that I use all the time here. Usually I'll use the thicker one to take the handle screws out, but this one is meant for that screw. Alright, and then we can just come up here, grab the two springs. They sit in the cavities on the side plate. We want the yoke next. Again, these parts are clean. If they weren't clean, you probably saw that on the Seaboy that I did, the Penn 85. If they weren't clean, you better clean them beforehand. A little bit of grease on each side. Check the teeth on the pinion gear or spool gear. Make sure that they're clean. Got to put a little bit of grease on there intermittently, just like we did on the other one. And then we can seat this over the bearing. Next up would be the yoke. You want to get a little bit of grease onto the side here where that yoke is going to come up and down. Push in on that so that you can clear it to set the yoke, and it goes like that. And then you can put a little bit of grease up top on that yoke as well. And now I need to get a little coil spring because that's missing. There we go. I had just ordered some of these. I'm going to have to get some replacements. These came from penparts.com as well, or mysticparts.com now. So we're missing drag washers and dog springs for whatever reason on the few of these we've done already. That's your dog spring. There's two types of dog springs. On the one you probably saw the flat spring if you were watching that video. Alright, we're going to insert this in. We're going to rotate so that we're perpendicular. We're going to find the full threaded bridge screw. That would be this one. And insert that in the lower right hand corner as you're looking at it. It's actually the left hand from the front side. That creates a cavity here, and that's where this little coil spring goes. Then you just kind of wiggle that in place, and you can generally feel that it's set. If not, you better watch it because it does have a tendency to fly. So this is how it looks when it is properly set, and then you just complete the rotation until you hear that little snap so that you know that that screw is seated. And then you can just start to tighten it down. Don't tighten that screw all the way. Turns out when not seated, it moved a little bit when I just flipped it over to start the tightening process. There you go. All right, now we're looking for the partially threaded screws. Those are the bridge screws. They belong up top, so I'm going opposite that one. And we're going to try and get this one seated. And that's because there's play in this bridge. So if you start tightening one side, you may not be able to get the screws in on the other. Don't get frustrated by it. Just do it this way, and generally you can get the alignment better. That's a partially threaded. Now we'll get the partially threaded for the other side. That one should line up now because we've got the two opposings lined up. Again, I don't tighten anything down until I get all 4 of them in. So here's number 4. And once you tighten it, just reverse the order. Come on back and kind of reset. So these have been the staples of the charter industry for the better part of forever. These things were pretty much bulletproof and great little reels all around. So I just put the sleeve on now. Just going to test it, make sure it's working, and it seems to be working fine. So now we're going to go set up the frame. We're going to grab the 2 short screws in here if we can find them. Here's one. We don't have the holes on the side plate here aligned. This little pick here comes in handy for so many different little things. An offset to them. So I had to swap those over. Now we're going to go grab the side plate screw. The short ones are the ones you want to find. That leaves just a little nub out, which is just the width of this piece. That's going to make all the difference in the world here in terms of setting this up properly. Because it won't go any further than the side here. If you take the long ones, they will go further. And the problem that you're going to have with that is that the line can catch on them. So you don't want to. You want to make sure that the small ones go low and the longer ones go into the cross post. Okay, that's one down. And we can put the cross post screws in and cross posts. So the 65 only differs from the 60 in the spool width. There are no other differences with that configuration. Everything inside is identical. If you're looking to make a Franken reel, if you have 2 reels that are broken, let's say you have a 65 that's got a broken side plate on it, but you have a 60, then you can swap out the side plates. They'll work fine. If you have gear issues, you can swap those. They're totally interchangeable with the exception of the spool and the reel seat. Those are wider. So same thing that happened, we just did one of these on a 160. Everything in the 160 can be worked on with the 155, which is the wider spool, with the exception of the spool and the reel seat. And of course the cross posts at that point. Okay, that one's slipping because I got a lot of grease on this glove. So if you get stuck with one, just use a piece of padding, put it in the pliers, and just grab it gently. Don't put the pliers directly on it. You'll scar it if it starts spinning. That's all you need to do there in terms of making that work. All right, now we're back to the side plate bearing. And we have the spring that goes along with that. And then we can insert that into the side plate here. And tighten. You don't want to over tighten that bearing. Next up then we can go for a little bit of grease onto the stud of the spool and put the spool in. We've completed the side plate now. Oh, the frame just came out, not a problem. We'll go grab the, put a little bit of grease onto the other side of this spool. And I'll line the pieces now. And I probably mentioned this on the other one, but if you find that you have a little bit of a gap there, flip the free spool lever, and that'll close the gap while you go to reassemble. Same thing here. We have 2 short screws and the rest are long. I'm going to start by putting a long screw into the crossbars. That's where the long ones go. You'll notice the difference. There's 4 of them that are long and 2 of them that are short. You have 4 cross posts and 2 in the reel seat. Alright, put that one on. Line this one up on this side. And then we'll go down and tighten up the one on the reel seat. That's a shorter screw again, just like the other side. So find those short screws. That's where they live. Kind of sounds like Bob Ross in his painting. That's where the happy screws live. Okay, back here with this one. And we have 2 more side plate screws, and we'll be able to put the drag tensioner system on, and we'll be able to put the handle on and give it a test drive. See how we did. So while we're got some dead air here, thank you to all first responders that are working day in and day out on these pandemic issues, trying to keep us all safe, trying to nurse back to health those of us that find ourselves with the virus. I appreciate all of your efforts and what you're doing there to help support the effort. It's Memorial Day weekend here in the United States, and it's a time to remember all the fallen heroes that have given so much for their country and to protect their freedoms. Let's not forget all of the heroes present day that are out there on the front lines working with this pandemic. Okay, we put the star adjuster on after putting the gear sleeve on. Handle is next. And handle screw. Now this says oil on it. If we didn't take that gear sleeve off, you would go ahead and oil this. But we took that gear sleeve off and we put the, oops, wrong side, put the grease right in there so you don't need to do any more there. And I'm using this wrench. I always get questions on this wrench. This wrench is an Allen Tanny wrench. It's an aftermarket wrench. It is also available through Penn Parts. And if you do a lot of work on Penn reels, you probably want that. It's a little thicker and a little bit longer for leverage. And it also contains the wrench parts for the smaller reels as well as the bigger reels like the 6.0 side. Alright, here we go. We got it working that way. Nice strong flicker. And we got a reel ready to go back fishing. So there you go. Nice with new drag washers. And the reverse is working with that spring. We're all set to go. So another successful story in terms of the from pillbox to performance. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Stay tuned. There's a 2 more in the series here. There's a Penn Senator 3.0 and there's a Sailfisher 130 in the box that hopefully we'll have that same kind of success with. So this is with Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Hope you've been enjoying these. Stay safe with the pandemic. Thank you to all of the first responders, and please stay tuned for more. If you like this, please subscribe. If you click on those notifications, you'll see all of these projects as they become available. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day.